talking so that I don't have too thick a Southern accent today.
Well, if I can use the C word a lot more if I do it with a British accent because they use that word like the.
No,
We're live.
no,
And that is probably not the word we want to lose.
Not even the C the.
And so what is your British accent, Ranger Nick?
Well, I mean, I guess I could do multiple ones. Depends on which Doctor Who season I'm watching, whatever.
Not bad.
So the rumor has it that our Max Tillsley, Robert, that Aussie guy, is actually not really from Australia because Australia is a myth. The flat earthers tell us that. It is a government conspiracy to hide the flat earth. So he actually lives on an aircraft carrier.
Where everything kills you.
Yeah.
No, he actually lives on an aircraft carrier with all the other crisis actors.
Yeah, that's why you can't see any land behind me. This is all just a stage.
All right, so that's one heck of an intro. Welcome back to another episode. We're going to read the intro now, Cisca. Calm down. So, hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. Time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just three nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. So, without further ado, let's go back to talking to Robert because he sounds cool.
Hello, old chaps.
There you go.
Brother.
So, do you suddenly feel the urge to drink hot tea, everyone? No? Just me? Do they do that in Australia, or is that just British?
Well, I actually spent a couple of years over in the UK, so I brought back the tea habit.
Earl Grey?
Hot.
English breakfast, chaps. English
that is a good one.
Wait. But is it Fortnum and Mason?
Oh, I can't afford such things as that.
Well, Fortnum and Mason used to be very hard in the States to get a hold of because they got a little upset when people in Boston tossed it into a harbor.
Well,
the insurance would have been terrible.
Well, that's what happens when you raise the tax 2% on a breakfast beverage that isn't coffee.
We would have shot sooner if it had been the coffee. But so, Robert, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience? We've talked a little bit about, obviously, you're from Australia, the land that may or may not exist.
Well,
everything wants to tell us.
Everything exists somewhere, doesn't it?
The multiverse is real, so let's rock that.
That's what we say. So I'm from Australia. I'm an author who's I've sort of mainly focused on what I call upper middle grade. So that's like kids 10 years and up and adults who think that they're kids 10 years and up.
Oh, so Nick's maturity level.
Right.
Yeah.
He's not denying it. Let's move on. So
it's got pictures in it. I'm sold.
I have 2 cats and 2 kids. As to which cause more trouble, well, it depends on the day.
Debatable. I got 3 kids and 2 dogs. It's a mixed bag.
All right. So you also write a little bit of sci-fi sometimes when you want to be a grown-up.
Ooh.
What a horrible
Yes. So I have an adult science fiction as well, The Last Cruise Ship. And occasionally I force myself to actually write short stories which aren't short, but they're meant to be short. So do we call them short?
If they identify as short.
If they identify as short.
So,
I'm the size of a hobbit, so it doesn't really matter.
I know. It's cute. I need somewhere to rest my coffee when we hang out.
Ooh.
Just don't do it on my head. I mean, I'll hit a lady.
I thought you were just going to say it was a bit too round.
That's it.
Got to put them on these broad shoulders.
The second part of the introduction, dear listeners, we talk about how we first met them. So since I happen to know, well, you know what? I don't know, but I actually first met Robert through the listeners of the Dead Robot Society podcast and their Facebook group where we talked about writing and stuff. And then we joined the same writing group, and we've been talking for a few moons.
That's why our voices sound really rough.
Yeah, because he's put up with me, and it's just driving him slowly insane.
I understand that. How many years are you in on this?
Ouch. I'm wounded. You wounded me.
I know JR for 6 months. I want to strangle him.
I mean, it's a proven fact I'm the reason he drinks.
Me?
So what we're saying is COVID's kept you alive because no one can get near you.
That's right.
Assassins aren't cheap.
Correlation.
Especially
with all the face masks out there.
They monitor the dark web too much these days, so it protects me. So, Doc, how did you first find out about Robert? You got a cool story?
It's kind of a song we've sung before. It's, hey, Cisca, there's this really cool person. You should check them out.
I bet Nick could come up with a better story than that.
What she said.
Well, you did tell me that I can't move to Australia because it would be too difficult to schedule on a routine.
Oh, come on, like anybody that like does writing that doesn't involve pictures with it, I'm like a complete noob to it. You know, so I get like my book collection has grown exponentially since you brought me onto this.
So from like
monstrosity.
Huh? 1 to 5?
Yeah, you talk a lot of smack. I'll show you a picture of my bookshelf.
Yeah, you don't want to look at the pictures
at
of
least
the books
6
that he's reading.
Yeah. He's reading the articles, I swear.
No, they stopped putting nudies in there, so like, why? I don't even read the articles anymore. It's like, come on, the nudies brought you to the articles.
Once upon a time, we had a podcast co-host who would like make up funny, ridiculously absurd stories about it, and I was hoping you could carry the torch, but Doc was like,
"You gotta let me know pre-show, so I have a little bit of time to prep. I can make up some stuff, but not on the fly. I mean, I'm not a writer."
All right. So whoever has the next most important question, I have my mouse over the kick button. Let's do this.
All right, let's talk religion. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
Now, you see, last time I think I copped out and said Doctor Who. But what I want to do this time is like some evil, what I call chimera, and you might call like chimera, depending on how you pronounce it. I want the budget of Star Wars, the longevity of Star Trek, and Firefly's heart.
Yes, I like that.
So now that you have ordered up the unicorn of TV shows, I think we should just talk about Babylon 5.
I'm surprised we don't get hate mail about not putting Battlestar Galactica in that question.
We could always change the question, but it's just the triumvirate was 3. And Battlestar Galactica makes it 4.
BSG is amazing.
I've got to go with BSG over Battlestar Galactica. I love the sets. I love the actors in Battlestar Galactica. I felt the story sort of lost its way.
Which Battlestar Galactica,
though? The modern, the old sort of movie style thing. I remember and sort of loved, and I actually have I think a book that was a novelization of it, which was sort of cool. It's oddly kiddie, from what I remember. This is 30 years ago, so. But yeah, it was sort of cool. But yeah, no, Babylon 5, ongoing plots, serious politics, really dodgy CGI, but yeah, it was still cool.
I agree. And because we're polytheistic, I think I said that right. I don't know. I've had a few cocktails before the show. Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, or
Say it. What was that last one?
You are a wizard, Harry.
The Potterverse. Come on, it's Star Wars with crappy lightsabers. I've said this.
I don't know. I think Harry Potter manages even more wish fulfillment than Star Wars does.
Well,
and that's saying something.
Fans as much.
Obviously, you haven't seen my living room, sir.
He plays with dolls.
I'm going to steal a little bit of what I did last time. Game of Thrones is really cool because of the actual feeling of risk, because there was character risk.
Because he
I think that was cool. Exactly. But no, so having a bit of that's cool. And the world building, though, in Lord of the Rings, I think beats Game of Thrones to me, hands down, on that front. And like the part of me really does like the little bit of wish fulfillment in Harry Potter. I just, it's you're a wizard, Harry. And look, the 12-year-old in me can't help but enjoy that. So I think if you threw in a bit of the Game of Thrones darkness, get the depth of Lord of the Rings, and, just that wow factor from that little bit of Harry Potter, to me, that would be like the ultimate fantasy.
That would be cool. I'm on board
that
with
would be. I just actually realized something. That question is a very British question. Game of Thrones was essentially based off War of the Roses. Tolkien was written by a British guy. Tolkien was a British guy, so Lord of the Rings was British. So is Harry Potter.
I'll give you an American thing then, because what really got me going in fantasy was, and I hope he's American, otherwise it's going to sound stupid, but Magician by Raymond D. Feist.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I think he is.
It certainly aged a little bit, but he just created this amazing, I wouldn't say world, there's multiple worlds. It's actually a fascinating mixture of standard fantasy, but also a little bit of portal fantasy built in. And sort of the series go on and get a little bit drawn out. But there's some amazing books, and he did the Daughter of the Empire series with Janny Wirtz, which are just absolutely fantastic as well.
Well thought out answer.
Oh, just beautiful answer. I almost forgot the next question.
So I'm going to wrap it up and put a bow on it shortly.
Put a bow on it? Okay.
Yeah.
Waiting on the bow. No, I'm just kidding. No, do you have more to say about it, or?
I can go on if you want. On page 5, it says no. All good.
We like to have fun here, kids. We really do, and we have great hosts too that love to play along, which is the best part. We here at Blasters and Blades podcast like both the fantastical and the scientific. Which was your first love, sci-fi or fantasy?
Ooh, I think fantasy first, and that's because the red box set of Dungeons and Dragons, my brother got it. And he was 3.5 years older, and so I sort of got introduced to it by him, and it was just absolutely captivated me. And then, like, I wasn't a big reader as a kid, as a young kid, and then a teacher had a fantasy book called Master of the Grove and did it as a class book, and that just caught me. And from there, I sort of rolled on to Anne McCaffrey's Dragon Riders of Pern books, which some may say are sort of also science fiction, but they are. But to be fair, I think that there's fantasy is the underlying theme for certainly the first set of books.
World.
Yes, it is, but it's still fantasy.
No, it's not.
If it has a dragon,
die on
it's
this
fantasy.
hill.
All right, are we going to talk about Star Wars, whether that's sci-fi or fantasy then?
Actually, I categorize Star Wars as a Western.
I don't watch Westerns. You can't make me think that.
Properties are Western.
Actually, Star Wars has so much going on there. It's sci-fi, it's fantasy, it's a Western, it's a samurai film. There's some Ronin stuff going on up in there. That's why I love Star Wars so much, and that's why it looks like Lucasfilm threw up in my living room.
At first I did not believe he was a Star Wars fan because he doesn't cry.
I cry.
He just won't show you.
I just don't like stubbing my toe that much.
You ain't right. We like you, but you ain't right.
I know I'm not right.
I'm drinking out of a Baby Yoda cup.
A Yeti?
All right. So, did he already answer the love of what does he love about it?
No. So that's the next question.
Well, obviously, I was starting to weigh on me.
It gives me big hugs.
He wanted to trade questions. It's not my fault.
I know it's. Hey, I'm a rookie on the blue lines here, so give me a break. What do you love about the fantasy as a genre?
Oh, I think magic itself. I know you can get fantasy that's not heavily magic based, but I love just the possibilities when you throw away the laws of physics. Monsters. I absolutely love monsters. I grew up reading. You get these sort of semi-educational books in the school library, which were essentially just these fantastic illustrations of monsters and people fighting dragons. I remember this this knight in spiked armor fighting a dragon in a river. Some might recognize the mythology reference in that one. And now, sort of being someone who wears armor, I'm like, that is so impractical, but it just looked absolutely amazing. And I've always loved medieval things. So like it was sort of, I'm just going to make a lot of people hate me, but I started reading urban fantasy much later, and like I quite enjoy it, but it just when you say fantasy, my head just drops right into that Western medieval sort of concept, just because that's what I was steeped in. And then you throw in the castles, knights, medieval weapons and armor, and I'm just drooling.
It's awesome. So what kind of armor do you wear?
So I do. I'd have to pull one up. I'm sure I've got it somewhere. So I do both modern longsword fencing, which is
cool.
quite different from your sort of Olympic épée fencing and all that sort of stuff. We wear heavy padding, and then also I've got splintered armor with brigandine, which is because we do sort of medieval shows as well, fighting with steel weapons. So you sort of need
do life
solid
steal
armor.
and cut and thrust? That's cool.
So
yes, I am a big sword dork. I did the SCA and I did fencing through that, and dabbled a bit in heavy fighting. So
I just love it. It's weird because I get bruises and all the rest of it, but it's still fairly safe compared to a lot of sports. And it's the one-on-one aspect, the mental strategy that it goes in. It just, I absolutely can't get enough.
All right, give me a second, and I will find some pictures of him in the sword ring.
All right, me in armor just looks like it's this poor metal is straining to hold my massive body in. It's like, help me, I'm only steel.
That's how I feel when I put my stormtrooper armor on. I was going to be an adventurer, and then I took an arrow to the knee.
It's true.
Oh dear.
He did, and then he fell on his hip.
Oh god.
Well, I have
all kinds of black and blue. Oh, look at you!
Oh, dude, I love your Aventail.
Thank you.
And your pauldrons.
I'm gonna smile and nod.
So, and that's with part of the armor. So I make pretty much all the armor I can. Not the helmet, and that, but I do my own arms and legs and things. So it's I made chainmail, this chainmail top, and I was going, this is brilliant. I thought I'll make it really defensive. I'm using really good stainless steel, 304 stainless steel. It's really tough. Make, and then start to put on after I've done years or so's worth of work. It's so heavy. It was utterly overmade. I was like, okay, that wasn't a good idea. But it's pretty. It's so pretty.
There's chainmail that's made for divers who are going into water and swimming with sharks.
Waters usually,
yeah. But I know a bunch of people who started wearing it for fencing and armor in the SCA.
So. You see this one? This is his other one with his other outfit.
I know, but I'm partial to the green and gold because it reminds me of Outlands.
Well, the green and gold is the surcoat that I wear over the other kits. So under that green and gold is the all the hard work when you've made special triangular sets for holding the rivets holding the plates in. All looks utterly beautiful, lots of craftsmanship, and then you put something over the top so you can't see it.
Yep.
What a shame. What a shame that they would hide that.
Out of his depth on this one.
I smile and nod and just know what I don't know. But speaking of what I don't know, let's ask him a question we don't know the answer to. So, what is your first memory of science fiction or fantasy as a genre? Was it watching it? Was it reading books in the genre, playing the RPG with your brother? Where did you discover the genre of sci-fi and fantasy, otherwise known as speculative fiction?
It really was, I think, in D&D. After the Red Box set, a friend of the family gave us the advanced D&D players monster manual and Dungeon Master's guide. They're old and battered, and we had never seen Advanced Dungeons and Dragons before, and just the monster manual, going through and seeing all these creatures, which are, let's be honest, are sort of like dodgy rip-offs mostly of mythology and other weird stuff, but it was just absolutely enthralling. And then, sort of once I got into high school and started reading, then I couldn't get enough of both fantasy novels, as I said, like Raymond E. Feist and Jenny Wirtz and a whole slew of others. And then science fiction also started grabbing me, because I think that there's a lot more written for older audiences in science fiction, whereas fantasy is really big when you're looking at younger kids.
So with the D&D, did you guys have that whole satanic panic come to Australia, or was that just an American thing? With D&D going to make you worship the devil and stuff?
It was much stronger in the US. There are very obvious, if subtle, cultural differences. But my brother did get the Palladium role-playing game, which had, I think it was rules for insanity, and that definitely caused some awkwardness with the family. but no, otherwise it was all good. It was just whether or not you're playing with people that were good to play with, or a few of them with interesting personality types. But the actual there wasn't a big cultural issue around.
What class do you like to play with when you're doing that? Like with D&D?
So my favorite one is the sorcerer, because the whole thing of the memorized spells and then not being able to cast it again, I know that sort of tied in. There was some very early fantasy novels that sort of had that sort of thing as well. That was never my sort of thing, but I loved having the sorcerer, because once we had people try and assassinate our group in a castle that we were sleeping at, and we're like, okay, we've killed them, right? We're all alive. And well, what do we do? Because we're theoretically trying to pretend that we're working with the people in the castle. So I was like, okay, well, I'm a sorcerer. I can create some acid. There's a bath here. Let's dissolve these bodies in acid and pretend it never happened.
I absolutely love that answer.
So yeah, I love that. So I like fighting with a sword in real life, but I love magic when I'm role playing.
Oh, magic's great, especially when you're creating acid baths to dissolve your victims, which is awesome.
I gotta say, that was well before Breaking Bad, so I did it first.
There you go. So how did your love
he
of
licked it? It's his.
That's how this works. No
Don't
taking back.
lick the acids.
You're talking to the analytical chemist. She's going to be like, getting all twitchy about chemicals now.
Just because we were talking about it at work today.
So
How
The
you're my
hypotheticals
coworker.
must be so weird at your job. What dissolves a body faster?
All right. So how did your love of speculative fiction as a wide genre transition into your writing stories in it?
I think it's so fundamental, because you come across, as a lover of reading it to begin with and role playing, and then movies begin to sort of sit there and filter into the back of your brain, and giving you really strong visual references. And so I think over time, what sort of really happened is I've been steeped in that medieval side of fantasy, and so that sort of comes in with a love. But then I just often there'll be something where I'll go, oh yeah, I've always loved this idea, but then I just start to think, but what if it was a little bit different? How would I do that? And that sort of having sort of learned a little bit about some of the earlier English history, when you go pre-medieval, that tends to sort of play in a little bit into there. And I come from an IT background as well, so when I'm doing science fiction, sort of all the things that I've seen in science fiction, or read, and I'm sitting going, no, that wouldn't work. It can't be like that. It tends to fit in then because I like to twist it into my own internal logic and then throw that out into my writing. And I'm sure someone else will read my stuff and go, no, it couldn't possibly work that way. But that's like the circle of creativity, isn't it?
I will give that answer an A. I agree. So, many authors let their own real life experiences influence the stories they tell. So, were there any specific formidable moments that really shaped you as a storyteller? Was it when the drop bear almost ate your face, or did your baby get eaten by a dingo, or like lay it on us?
There's definitely been a few things. I was living by myself before I turned 16, and so I have like authority and structures and things like that within my characters. I suppose that has to play out in that I don't love that control and structure there, and yet the same token, at that age, I was sort of saved in a way by there being a bureaucracy that gave me a chance to continue schooling and all the rest of that. So I think within my storytelling, there's both this railing against structure, but also seeking to improve it in a way. So that there's this conflict that goes through in my head that's definitely there. But also, like, as a kid, I think those moments dealing with like bullies and or just weirdos on the street, it created within me a very sort of defensive mindset sometimes, and also that desire to help people. So I had friends that were picked on and things like that, and it sort of helped that I certainly had bullies too, but I wasn't a small kid. And I think I found that this weird savior complex within me, and I think that sort of sometimes goes through within some of my characters. Often they don't realize that they want to do that, but as you sort of bash off all the rough edges by putting them through utter misery, that desire to sort of save people, to save the world or whatever, sort of ends up coming through. And I'm sure that comes from my upbringing. I don't know. Cancer probably gave me that, you might as well do things now. Don't put things off. So that's why actually just manages to get me writing when I don't feel like it. And you can't do anything if you're not actually writing.
Do you think that's why you gravitate towards the kids' books right now?
There's this really weird thing. I mainly did the kids' books because I just got really annoyed at reading some books to my daughter, and I've read my eldest. I've read all sorts of classic ones and newer ones, but a lot of books that have female protagonists are either the protagonists are quite passive or the books aren't very action oriented. And so just that really annoyed me. I was like, right, I'm going to write the book that I want her to be able to read. And so, that came out with the Steel Trap, the first Susie Steele book. It was just that sort of reaction. And then that led, I don't know if any of you have ever seen the movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers. There's been about like 5 remakes.
I like the one with Sutherland. With Donald Sutherland.
Yes, sorry. I just had a frog in the throat. That's what happens here in Australia.
Oh, I thought I said something off.
Like, oh, no, Donald Sutherland. We don't speak about Donald Sutherland here. But
he was actually killed in a
tragic... has this cool thing of people being replaced, and the people are the same, sort of, but not quite. And that whole just weirdness around people not being quite what you think they are, or you think they're not. Is it all in your head? That sort of thing just built up, and I threw in a bit of the Terminator because I love robots and things like that as well. I couldn't let the idea go, so that became Rebirth, and it's like, oh, wait a second, I've now written 2 books that are for this age group, and then we'll get on later as to the cause of brains, but it's sort of just flowed that way. But I do like writing for adults as well. I have other projects that are in that big pile of to be done.
No, I mean, there's nothing. I mean, even adults can enjoy the age range of which is your demographic in some of these books. I just ordered Brains for me and my son, so we could read it together because he likes zombies and he loves to read. We just gave him Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and he tore through that in a couple of days.
Oh, fantastic!
So you give us something to kind of bond a little bit more, and I do enjoy reading outside of the comic book form. So
yeah, well, it is like. There's odd thing, like a well-written middle grade. It's a bit like a lot of quite old adults read YA, but you also have it with middle grade, where if it's a good story, it becomes like just a nice, easy, fun read. Yeah, and you can just enjoy it. You know, I've done that a ton reading to my own kids, and when I was a teacher, I loved reading class books for that sort of reason. If you have a good book, it doesn't matter really who it's aimed at. It's a good book. It's fun.
Yeah, a good story is a good story. I mean, it really doesn't have an age criteria, you know. Maybe some of the themes might get a little too dark and they don't get it, but, you know, overall, a good story is a good story. I agree with you 100%. Okay. Cisca, you're muted. Or
Sorry, I was muted. I was coughing earlier, so I muted myself. But Harry Potter is actually sold in the children's section. And but your story of why you started writing because you wanted to see a certain kind of story for your kids to read is also why David Weber wrote a YA series. So,
fascinating! I didn't know he had.
Yeah, it starts with a beautiful friendship. It's about Stephanie Harrington, so Honor Harrington's ancestor who first discovered the tree cats. So it's that story, really good. So, and it's, you know, like you guys were saying, the age, if it's a good story, it doesn't matter the age, people will enjoy it. So.
Absolutely.
My kids laughed at me because I was reading Percy Jackson books, you know.
I have the complete set. I need to finish it.
Right. I was like the Hulk and Ragnarok. I'm like, Greek mythology, big monster.
Can't go wrong.
Absolutely not, you know. And I enjoyed the hell out of those books, too.
Very good.
Okay.
Well, this is where we will. Well, it's actually your question, but we will awkwardly pause where he can say something super Australian for our listeners.
G'day, mate. How's it going? Just throw another shrimp on the barbie.
One way to fill an awkward pause, and now we will get the hate mail from Australia.
That's not how we talk, you wanker.
Well, I could try a South African accent.
No, I have to work on my Australian one.
To transition away from writing, let's talk about things from the fan angle. Have you had any really cool fan art or somebody cosplay one of your characters yet?
I have received fan art from a kid and it was really cute. It's really cute. It may not be up on the wall of an art gallery, but it was absolutely beautiful. But most of my characters actually just wear ordinary clothing. So my daughter once went dressed up as Susie Steele, and that's a private school character. So in a red jacket uniform and all that sort of thing. And then I'll call it a wand. They're not a wand in the stories, but a wand as well to go alongside. So that was cute.
That's awesome. I'm glad she's supportive. Has anyone asked you for your autograph in public away from a book signing or a convention?
I think, how would you put it? Away from any sort of event, I'm about as anonymous as, that old bubble gum you get that's really ground into the sidewalk and is that sort of murky gray brown.
He's rolling incognito, and I dig that. That's why a lot of people write and so we can be quasi-famous but yet anonymous at the same time because nobody knows what we look like. We're not actors.
So
we're
fun
creative.
Fact, when he was actually at one of those sword events, they weren't actually trying to stab him. They just wanted him to sign their sword. So that counts.
And then he gave him cold hard steel through the forehead. Bang.
No, when we've succeeded in doing that, that's when it goes wrong. When the person's dropped down and you're okay, this doesn't look right. You open up the helmet and the blood's pouring out and you're like, oops.
Did I do that?
Sorry.
I wonder what that conversation with the ER doc is going to look like. Like, tell me again how this happened. Sword, you say?
A couple of years ago, we had a guy who got done just as sword went through the eye slit and went just above his eyebrow. And so, yes, he turned up, had to go to the emergency room. Turned up in his armor because we had to get him there right away.
Did the doctor say, "Doth thou even lift, bro"?
I know JR doesn't.
My understanding is they loved it. The emergency room loved it.
Outstanding.
That's
well,
awesome.
I mean, if you can make them happy, what else can you ask for, right, Doc?
I would have said, hey, there was this bright blue portal-looking thing. I stepped through it. I'm bleeding. Help me.
Yeah, you don't want to go to the psych ward, dude. But if you're
dressed in armor, you might as well have some fun with it, even in the midst of an emergency.
All I'm saying is the psych ward had good cookies.
Never pass over a good opportunity for a good joke.
Just in the movies, anytime there's an injured person, they're always like sitting there with scissors cutting away the clothes. Just imagine them trying on his chainmail.
Trump will not go through chainmail at all.
I knew somebody who had, and everybody in his group, his household had to have instructions on how to quick release him from armor or anybody's armor because they will cut through armor or equivalent
smart,
of it, the leather. Yeah.
Don't hurt my stuff. Do you know how much this cost?
I do. I have $350 gauntlets, articulated gauntlets.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But have you slapped somebody with them to challenge them to a duel for their honor?
Dibs.
I have slapped them. I did not challenge them to a duel with their honor, but I did slap them.
You can just slap me with them just for fun.
We're trying to keep the family rating for this episode since he writes kids' books.
Next Dragon Con.
All right.
Okay. But you do write books, and have you ever spotted somebody reading one of your books out in the wild?
That's most of my books, because they're for middle grade, so they're read by kids. So I generally don't hang around kids too much beyond the family ones. So really, it's more that I get through social media, comments around people like it, and and adults as well going, all right, I know it's for my kid, but I really enjoyed it too.
That's great. So what is the weirdest, funniest?
I just want to point out that out in the wild means a whole lot different when you're talking about Australia where everything wants to kill you.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So there was this kangaroo once, right? And I had my book pulled it right out of his pouch.
Your autograph.
I just my favorite part of like the Australian like animal life is the huntsman spider, because they just like turn up everywhere apparently, and just like make themselves at home, and they're apparently pretty gentle, I guess. I don't know.
They're sort of how we domesticated cats-ish, right? So they're there in your house, and they take your stuff and they let you live there. Huntsmen are sort of like that in that they can get quite big, and usually they'll just skid away from you. But what they do is eat little bugs and things. So they're sort of like rats eating mice around your home. Mm-hmm. But you don't want one crawling across you. It's not a pleasant experience.
No. They're big, gigantic, scary kaiju-looking things. So, but I like my bucket list item is to go to Australia. I want to see a huntsman spider. I want to, dive the Great Barrier Reef. I've read so much about Australia growing up because it's pretty much, it's like European Texas is what I used to call it.
Terra incognita.
It's like, okay, cool, but we're gonna do our own thing, and we're just gonna be some just.
We just need to have a picture of Nick with European Texas on it.
Yeah, but I can't do the accent. It baffles me. But like, there's so many cool things I want to see there, and I don't want to mess with a kangaroo because they look like just roided up rats, So
yeah.
So there's
especially the males.
Yeah, they're quite aggressive, aren't they?
They're all pretty good. Not really. I mean, it probably depends on the time of the year and the area. I've certainly never had one cause me any issues.
Just as a general rule,
you have the grass and leaves. I'll eat the meat, and they're all happy with that.
Yeah, and they're all yoked. Like when they do that flex thing, and I'm like, man, I need to spend more. I mean, I don't ever skip leg day, but maybe I should not skip a chest day every once in a while.
They're gonna please the girls somehow, haven't they?
Yeah, there's the funny video of the dude boxing the kangaroo to protect his dog.
Oh yeah.
All right, so I'm going to save you from.
Nick definitely has some hang-ups about the wildlife out there.
Like I'm. It's a mixed bag of wanting to stay the hell away from it and wanting to like give it a hug.
So all right. So what is the funny? Do you have any funny or memorable interactions with fans?
Not so much funny, but occasionally heartwarming. I've received actually with Brains. I've had a couple of messages come through from people who've had kids who are either reluctant or struggling readers, and just saying that the kids have just devoured it, and that just that's like, oh, I just had this little glow on the inside. It just feels so good because I remember as a kid, it really took just the right book at the right time to get me into reading. So when I get those sort of messages, that's just so nice.
Okay, so this is the part of the interview, Robert, where you get to give us the Reader's Digest version of your bibliography. So what all have you written?
So Reader's Digest version, does that mean that I just say, well, look, I've stopped, I can't talk about it anymore because it died 10 years ago, or is that?
So
Reader's Digest still going?
Reader's Digest still there.
All I remember is Reader's Digest being like these little books that would be hanging around old people's houses in the toilet, like something for them to read. All right. Books. Let me talk about books and not toilets. So the first one that I published was The Last Cruise Ship. That's a science fiction adventure for adults. I think I mentioned that before. Essentially, what I wanted to do was take like the most worthless individual, and he accidentally does his job, and then accidentally hijacks an interstellar ship, and just there's space battles, there's sort of touching moments, bit of humor, and some really cool interaction with AI that I just love playing with. And then after that, that's when I got hooked on this upper middle grade sort of thing. And that this first Susie Steele book, I'm writing book 2 at the moment, but the first one, The Steel Trap, which is, it's sort of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer for 12-year-olds, mixed in with Ghostbusters, and a bit of a spy novel sort of in there as well.
That's cool.
And then came Rebirth, which is the one I was talking about, where it's middle grade science fiction. It's set in Australia, and it's that mixture of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Terminator, and then sort of about a dozen low-budget kids shows where there's really low-budget Australian things, whereas always, the kids against the adults, and I just love that sort of when the kids are really by themselves, and they just have to make it work. And then, of course, Brains, which just came out, which I suppose you want to talk about, but essentially it's a zombie apocalypse interactive adventure. Just rolls off the tongue there.
So, can you just imagine like this Urkel-like setting with your last cruise ship where he accidentally hijacks a ship? I was like, oops, no. I didn't mean to.
No.
Yeah.
I don't do cruise ships. They're happy fun houses of death on boat water.
And they're awesome. Ooh.
But it's not just any cruise ship. There's this reveal halfway through that I can't say, but it's just I like sitting there the whole time writing, yes, you think it's this. Halfway through, everything's gone absolutely to terrible. I won't say what. It's all gone awful. And then all of a sudden, just bang, hit with the core part of what the novel's really about. And I was like, yes, this is so good. So it's one of those where even if you hate my writing, whatever, you have to read to that 50% of the way through to get just the juicy bit.
All right. And so while all of that sounds fascinating, you are right. We are here to talk about Brains, the first book in the Tangled Fates series. So where did you get the premise for this universe? How did you come up with the idea for this series? Was it psychedelics, Ouija board, expired weird Australian food? I don't know what Australian food is. I couldn't come up with it.
Blame the Vegemite. Blame the Vegemite.
There we go. I blame the Vegemite.
And now an 80s song is stuck in my head. Thank you.
I do what I can.
So the cool thing about creating Tangled Fates, the idea of having the series was to give me a chance to throw down these different ideas. So it's more, rather than a universe, it's more an approach to storytelling. So the idea is that each book has one core idea, and then I just tease it apart, bring it to life, seeing where we can take it. So especially for middle grade, this means not dumbing it down, not just making it boring, simple little stuff where snotty-nosed people are, oh, this is suitable for little children. I needed to have real oomph. But I also wanted, if we're going to have all these cool things, what I felt was a downside of a lot of these style of stories when I was young was that because you are the character, that meant that the actual story writing where the events happen and that didn't really change who you were. And so what I'm really trying to do with this whole concept is to have an actual character arc for you as you go through all these different possibilities.
Okay, that's a good answer. So,
good answer.
Yeah. So why did you? We had the clapping seal. So why did you choose? Why did you pick a choose your own adventure? Although I know that's trademark, so pick your own path, whatever the term is generically. Why did you choose that as the venue, the medium to tell this story?
I was just about to get the red button and go, burr, burr, warning, litigation alert. So yeah, interactive adventure, game book, branching paths. There's that awkward thing of, like you had, Xeroxing back in the day of photocopying and Googling, I suppose, is the modern equivalent, where it's like, no, you really can't call it that because the company has many, many lawyers and lots of money.
And please don't come after us.
Netflix found out with Bandersnatch, the Black Mirror Bandersnatch incident. But honestly, JR, I have a feeling what really drove me initially was you. Because I know that you've been just every now and then looking at the concept and the structure, just saying, it would be interesting if, and then
JR motivated somebody.
I had a second child, and I've been doing the sort of stay-at-home dad equivalent while also trying to write. I was like, hey, you know what? Lots of discrete little bits. This is something I can just tackle piecemeal. Right? It's going to be easy. Wow, I'm so stupid. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hard work, but at the time it seemed like it'd be really, really simple. And and then like zombies, I always have zombies on my brain. The first novel which I wrote, that sort of became two novels because I didn't know how to finish anything. That I haven't released was a zombie story. It's like 200,000 words that's desperately looking for a home, but that's for another day. But zombies, there, I love The Walking Dead. I think it was Night of the Living Dead was the original black and white. That was just absolutely brilliant. And then Zombieland, Dawn of the Dead, and all these are just Shaun of the Dead. Love them.
Oh, classic. I love Shaun of the Dead.
So I'm sharing the book cover of the Lone Wolf series, which is what got me. It's really pixelated. It's the biggest I can find. They're out of print at the moment. You can buy them used on Amazon, but that's what got me into reading, actually, is reading those Choose Your Own Adventure. And they were so much fun. But trying to figure out how to organize that. And I'm picturing the serial killer scene where all the yarn is tacked to all the different scenes on somebody's corkboard, trying to figure everything out.
But it makes no sense.
And I know a lady that wrote them for more mature audiences, because she was at the 20 Books conference I went to in 2018. And she was like, yeah, they're half the time you'll finish, and then you'll realize you've got 2 or 3 threads left open, so you have to go scramble and link everything back. And I'm like, if someone could just write a plug and play, insert the storyline and it all, formula computer program, I'd totally try some. But
I didn't take that approach. I sort of, by doing a lot of the structural work to begin with, I didn't have missing endings. I did modify as I went through because, occasionally you find bits or you're like, oh, I've got to do this. I've got to try this because this would be so cool. But I had so much of the structure developed before I started the actual writing of the different scenes or segments or whatever you want to call them, that wasn't too painful for me.
So I got to ask, because I've only read 2 Choose Your Own Adventure books. One was an adult one. It was actually a Pern one, written by Jody Lynn
So
Nye.
it was fantasy.
It was written by Jody Lynn Nye.
It's not an episode unless that quick point figure pops up from Doc over here.
And the other one was for Plants vs. Zombies, which was meant for kids. But I got really bored with it because it was like, unless you picked the second option almost every time, you died like immediately.
Oh, no.
So it's like, you're dead.
It's a hard balance because a lot of those books as well, they're designed to have very narrow possibilities. So it's creating the illusion of choice without choice. So while there are a lot of deaths possible within brains, I really wanted to actually give you a chance to explore the world. So, you can make a whole bunch of different decisions that have all sorts of ramifications. They can impact on who your companions are, on how they treat you, on how the world ends up. And that's because I had 3 main paths originally that were the key sort of endings. And then as I sort of went along and filled out the segments that got you there, I sort of went, oh, okay, here's a choice, branch off. And then sort of looking at, okay, well, I need to have some deaths here. This needs to be, high risk and all that, and sort of started filling those bits out. But I didn't aim to begin with to just make it, that you had to follow this path or that path to get to a good end.
Yeah.
So
How
many storylines did you end up developing for the book, though?
That's a bit hard to say. Because there are just because there are locations. So there are the 3 main ones, and then there's other sort of spots. There's like an airport sort of area that comes in. There's a whole set by the docks at a river. There's a police station. There's spots around a convoy that occur, theater stuff. So it's sort of there's a pizza shop area. Make the wrong pizza and you die.
This is the way. This is the way. He knows what doesn't belong on pizza.
Gosh, JR, you don't count.
No spoilers there.
Pineapples.
But
Pineapples is awesome on pizza.
Only with olives and jalapenos.
I do love pineapple on pizza myself.
I've
got to find that.
But so sort of aside from those 3 main paths, but then it's funny, some of the sub paths really became their own adventures too. So that's why sort of the normal word count for a lot of the ones are around 10 to 15,000 words, and mine sort of goes much closer to 40,000, just because there were too many things to do. And again, I wanted to have the character side of things, whereas a lot of these, to keep the word count low and to keep it moving, they just, everything's so bare bones. But yes, I'm an idiot. I made myself much more work.
Well, I think the reason they keep it bare bones is the joy of the Choose Your Own Adventure is it's you, because you're making the story choices, right? So by leaving some of those details out, just like why the Master Chief always keeps his helmet on, because it could be you under there, right? You can visualize yourself.
There is never you underneath there.
I mean, if they had like a short, fat maternity version, sure, it could be me.
So
the reservist?
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, that was his Choose Your Own Adventure.
So I've actually seen, when we were doing some of the research in our writing group for this, there's actually some romances where it's like the standard love triangle, only you get to pick. Like, does she go with Bob or Jim or
I thought that's
Ginger
what
or
fan
whatever?
fiction was for.
Well, apparently now it's for pick your own path. Thank you for not suing us.
But yeah, so yeah, in these game books you do, yeah, they're quite. I'm pretty sure there's a Jane Austen one as well. But one of the things that I did was to make sure that the character's gender never matters in there as well. So I wanted, girls to be able to read this, boys to be able to read it. I had to sort of set the age range a bit because that's the starting scenario is just different if you're, a tiny kid, an older kid, teenager, or an adult. So beyond that, I try and go as light-handed as possible with those sort of details, just to give you that chance to sort of lose yourself in it.
Okay. Whoever's got the blue questions.
Oh, you know who it is? Cue that artwork, brother.
All right, I'm on that.
All right.
I'm tracking like a VCR.
Oh, that is a horrible analogy. Tracking like a javelin probably would have been better.
Oh my God.
It's not wire guided.
Well, I thought right on rights would be too culturally insensitive, okay?
You're culturally insensitive. Shut up. Put up the art.
It's up.
Before we dig in, let's take a look here because that's a beautiful cover. So let's talk about the cover here, the artwork. Very sexy. Can you tell us the story of this? Did you have any input on what the cover art was going to look like, or was it just kind of like based on whatever the publisher wanted?
So I actually pulled this cover together myself.
Nice.
It's normally it's definitely it's best to work with an illustrator with these sorts of things, but one of the things is I wanted it to have a modern look. If you look at a lot of the interactive adventures that are out there, the covers, how do I put it, they're sort of cool, but they're really, really dated, and they don't really give you that excitement. So that was the key thing for me. I wanted to essentially take photo manipulation and some careful illustration and just put it together to make something that felt alive, which I know for an undead story is a bit silly, but I wanted it to feel like there were things going on. I wanted that action to be right there. So there's strong colors. In the background, there's a crane, which is a big part of one scene. Originally, I wanted it to be a burning city, but you can't get many photos of burning cities for some reason. I think we should burn a few cities.
You end up on a watch list, apparently.
Apparently you do. And obviously you need your zombies, but the zombie hippo is sort of the star of the cover.
Tell me I encounter a zombie hippo.
You can encounter a zombie hippo. My favorite thing, actually, the zombie hippo comes with this brilliant moral choice. It's wonderfully awful.
Because hippos are scarier alive, not undead.
exactly. Because that's it's got this. Those who are just listening, it's got this fantastic open jaw, and those tusks. The teeth are just horrifying. Originally, I planned on bringing a lot of the detail right back out, so it was much more of a silhouette, but. I brought it to the level it's at, lots of shadow and things, and people just go, "Oh, that's so good. That's so horrible." Okay, I can't change that. I have to leave it as it is.
It's really cool. It was the first thing that I noticed when I was looking at the show notes and the cover was on there. It was like, wait, I'm like, is that a zombie hippo? They're scary. They're scarier when they're not undead. Now they're undead.
It is not the only zombie animal in there. I want to say things, but I can't until you've read it. They're just some of the creatures.
We might have to do a follow-up show after we all read it. Because a zombie hippo, I'm like really want to get into.
I guess Hasbro ruined hippos for me because every time I think hippo, I think Hungry Hippo, and it's just a little game.
Oh, this one's hungry.
I think I'm going to buy the Hungry Hippo game and zombify all of the hippos on there and then just do like a TikTok of me playing it.
That would be awesome. Make sure you tag his book.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
What am I, a rookie here? I'm like 20 episodes into this thing here.
That's right.
I'm a
All
novice.
authors are sort of, like they have these little begging bowls out. Tags and reviews, please, sir. Tags and reviews.
Please, sir, can I have some more? Can I have a smidgen of a review, please? Thank you.
5 stars. It's 5 stars.
5 stars. Bravo. All right, moving on to the book itself. What would your 30-second elevator pitch for this novel be?
Okay, so what I'd say is, because you've got 2 different audiences. You've got the adults you're trying to sell it to and the kids who want to read it. So for adults, essentially, it has adventures and thrills that just grabs your kids' attention. The tough choices hook them in, and the quality of writing, I'm going to put on my teacher hat here, enriches them. Right, it's not just the comic book with a few lines of writing in there. It's quality writing the whole way, even if I say so myself.
Hurtful. I'm a comic book writer.
No, but if you write comic books, I bet you're not writing Diary of a Wimpy Kid, are you?
Not yet. But if they want to throw me a bone and want me to illustrate and write it, I'll do it.
But it's quality writing though, because that's the thing. I've looked at some of these kids' books and I'm like, yeah, that's going back on the shelf, because I don't care if it's entertaining to you. The grammar is horrific. So
there's that weird thing of trying to, bring in the kids, but and that's like for publishers, they just want to sell books, right? So if the kids read them, it's great. And look, there's nothing wrong with reading popcorn, right? There's nothing wrong with it, but it's good to have something a little bit more in there, something a bit meatier,
a little more substance.
Yeah. Or if you're a vegetarian, a bit more eggplanty or something. I don't know.
Popcorn works.
I'm a carnivore. It's a personal choice.
But yeah, so
is definitely popcorn.
So Brains, essentially, because it's got all of those things, it's great for reluctant readers, but also for readers that just love devouring books. And for kids, what I'd say to kids, if you're listening, right, in this book, you matter. It's your life that's on the line. It's your friends that need you. You got zombies closing in. If you make a mistake, they're going to have you chewed up and swallowed in no time. And you get to save the world or escape the city with your life. You might become a beacon of hope in a savage land. You can be a hero, a heroine, but when you read this, you better get yourself ready.
That's really cool.
The dead are coming.
And eat your vegetables.
All human.
And eat your vegetables.
And eat your veggies, kids.
Or drink your Ovaltine. I don't know.
Drink your Ovaltine? A crummy commercial? Son of a gun.
All right. The next question is yours, Ranger Nick.
Of course it is. Quite right. But what makes I'm trying to find a way to phrase this here. TikTok, and I've got it. Bingo. What makes your series special? What makes it unique?
Oh, obviously, because I wrote it.
Okay.
Good answer.
He is so modest. Everyone says so.
I, too, am incredibly humble.
And if you don't, I have a zombie hippo I'm going to set on you. Now, really, it's...
I want a pet zombie hippo. I'm not even going to lie.
It's about the breadth of the scenarios. It all logically flows. So when you're going from one part of the adventure and then you go through another way, you still feel like you're in the same world, even if you're going through a different set of events. And I think that's often quite lost. And because it's not just trying to funnel you down one path. You really just get that feeling that that you're rewinding life and trying again when you go through a different approach. And they can be so dramatically different. It just gives you that chance to explore it. I certainly make it hard for you though.
Well, I mean, what's life without challenges, right? Even in reading, and that's one of the things I love about the since I can't say the phrase, what do we call it? Interactive readership,
interactive adventure / game book / whatever you.
Those are one of the coolest things because I think it takes a lot more planning to do that as opposed to a regular novel where the course is just laid out for you and you're just kind of like along for the ride instead of being in the ride and being an active participant in it. Those are one of the things that I love most. And then unfortunately, they don't make enough adult interactive novels like that.
So, what would you say that Zombie Brains hits on trope-wise? Since
Tropes in a zombie story. How could you suggest that?
No, there's no tropes.
There's getting eaten. There's a shopping center in some of it. But I didn't want the tropes to sort of drag me down a dark alleyway and eat me up. So so you've got the zombie hippo, the crane walk, which is not a zombie trope, but is, I suppose, very much a movie trope. What else is there? I don't know. I don't think pizza, having a pizza of doom is particularly tropey. I'm sure it's all there. Like if someone else read through, they'd be able to go, "Oh, there's a trope. There's a trope. There's a trope." In my zombie stories, they always have red glowing eyes. I don't know why. It's just that's my thing for zombies.
I like it. I think it's a cool thing.
So it's in there, but I didn't want to just tread down what had been there before. I wanted to take those fun aspects of it and just throw out and see where they went. So I actually deliberately didn't do any zombie reading or watching while I was putting it together.
So do they shamble or how do they walk? Your zombies?
Yeah, they're not fast zombies. There's in Susie Steel 2, which I shouldn't say too much about yet, but that has zombies which sort of, if the closer they are to you, the faster that they will move. But like really fast zombies, I think in reality, just it's over, it's done. I think you need to have some level, especially in a city, you need to have some level of slowness to them just to give humans a chance.
That's fair.
Oh, would you say that the zombies in your world kind of like conserve their energy, kind of like predators in the wild, like a wolf?
It's an interesting thing because when I was thinking about zombies, it's like, okay, at a certain point, are you sort of looking at an internal logic as to how they function, or is it essentially, are they powered by magic? And that's, I think it makes sense. Like in the other story, the different type of zombies. So I'm sort of, I don't want to get too far into that. In this one, it's just pure. There's a sciencey logic behind it, but when you encounter them, it's just a matter of, you're a glowing beacon, and they want to eat that beacon because it's a bit like bacon.
Oh, God, bacon is good.
Bacon. I'm here all week. Don't forget to tip the waiter.
You have to put bacon on a taco.
Speaking of tipping, we do have, if you are so inclined, a Buy Me a Coffee account that will be in the show notes. Since you said tipping, I will go with that as an opening.
I think we should have a hashtag of Buy Me a Bacon.
Buy Me a Bacon.
Are you going to start the website? Because, I mean, somebody has to run that thing.
Hickory smoke?
All right, then never mind. Buy me a coffee, and I'll use the money for bacon. Run a website. I can barely manage my life. You want me to run a website?
Anyways.
I don't adult too well.
Tell us about the main character. Is there a main character in this kind of a story?
Well, that's sort of what we were talking about before, in a way, in that the main character is you.
Okay.
So I try and keep as hands-off as possible.
Character.
And then,
so hopefully you're pulling yourself back in as a kid. But there are sort of certain features that had to be there. So I had, you are a new kid at a school, and you've sort of got a couple of almost friends, but you haven't yet really sort of created those relationships yet. And depending on what you do, then you can end up with entirely different people. It all just comes down to the decisions that you make.
Like you'd end up in different groups, like different survivor groups?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
So do you have any main characters that are particularly cool that you want to talk about? Or not main characters, right? Secondary characters. Sorry.
Characters that are awesome that you want to talk about.
I have one kid called Teo who just makes the worst jokes all the way through. So if you're going on any of the paths with him, you just get all my bad jokes. Like there's, I'll give you one. So you get eaten by a zombie at a certain point when he can't help you, and he says, "I'm sorry, it's too late." It's popped in my head, and I just couldn't stop myself. So that's in there. But I have there's a police officer character called Robinson, who you can encounter in two different areas and get sort of different results coming through. But her partner's died not that long before, and just the whole different sets of relationships that you can have with her. I love. Lots of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. I can't wait to read. 2 to 3 days, Amazon. I'm the timer has started.
See, Barnes and Noble, you could have gone in the ebook.
I get it in the ebook too, but I like things in my hand. I like to actually physically hold them when I read them. I feel a connection between myself and the author. Sorry.
That sounds like Jerry. That's the question.
So, does your story have any bad guys, or is it just the universe itself that's the bad guy?
Yeah, so they're of course all the zombies. They're a major part of the bad guy as a universe sort of thing. Like the environment that's your enemy. But there is a school bully that's also in the class group called Wild. Wilden's his last name, but everyone calls him Wild. And if you go off down that arc, there's a whole set of possibilities where things can get really nasty between the two of you. I will say that involves a zoo, but I'll leave it there.
So Harambe can eat your face because he's a zombie now. I gotcha. All right, so we will move on before we have to get that visual image out of our head, and we'll ask you this. So you've done horrible things to the universe, and by extension, horrible things to the main characters and secondary characters. So if they ever met you in a dark alley, exactly how screwed would you be?
Well, it's pretty obvious. They're all going to be zombies. So I'm dead. I'm eaten. It's done.
All right. Well, then if you become a zombie, as a newly minted zombie, who's the first person you're going to eat?
You!
Ooh. I think it has to be someone nice and juicy. You know, if I'm going to make all the effort to groan and drag myself along, I want a good big feed at the start.
All right. I mean, I guess I offer myself as tribute, but whatever.
He says, "Run, Tubby, run!" All right.
Okay. Never mind then. It's not going to be me. I'm only Tubby from like here to like the waist, and I look like a gorilla.
All right. So, but this isn't about you. This is about the one,
When is
the
it
only,
not
the
about
legendary
me?
Robert R. Max Tillsley. So, Robert, let's give a sneak peek of how the sausage was made. Were there any cool scenes that you had to cut from this book because of your word limit that you really thought were awesome and want to use later?
Oh, so the classic, yes, my 15,000 that became almost 40,000. Yeah, probably the biggest area is an airport. There's so much I wanted to do in the airport, but it was going to become another 10,000 words or so worth of choices. So I really had to pare that back to where I wanted it to be.
So, given the way you wanted to make this even more immersive with the size, etc., do you ever foresee yourself going back and doing a choose your own adventure for adults?
You mean create your own path?
Yes. Choose your own.
We get sued, man. We're not making enough monetarily.
You need to beat that out now. For adults, really, all of this it comes down to the classic market forces. I've got so many things that I'd like to do. It's going to come down to what sells, and then if this takes off and they're going, oh, I want this, but can you do one that's even more horrific or that covers this or that? Absolutely. But I need to know. I need the reviews. I need the sales. The sad fact of reality is that drives what's possible. But I will definitely be doing within this series another one. I've got a few actually where I've got half the structures put together, because you sort of slowly build up the structures, and then when it's ready, that's when you get into the real words. But there's one that's technology based. There's another classic monster one that's going on as well. It's just so many projects. Which do you do first?
That's awesome.
And then soon Nick is going to try to convince you to write a comic book with him. It happens.
Yep. Well, I grew up on like Asterix. Do you get over the Asterix and Obelix? I don't know if that's a thing. Do you guys see much of?
No.
Over there? I think it was originally Spanish, but it's set around Roman times, around France/Gaul. And there's this tiny little village that's resisting the entirety of the Roman army because it has a magic potion that gives them incredible strength. And it's filled with word plays. And so this is like, when I'm dissing certain books, I'm not dissing the medium. It's that sometimes publishers just seem to churn out stuff without a lot of thought. But
that's a good thing. I mean,
if
I can convince you to write a comic book with me, I am the publisher, and I really just let anything fly. So
if I'm like,
that sounds really cool. Let's do that. Like, you sure? It's going to be like a 66-page graphic novel. I'm like, that's awesome. Let's do this.
Hit the green light. Bang.
If it weren't for low standards, you'd have no standards at all.
Hey, you lower your standards, you raise your average, okay?
That's not how that works.
That's exactly how it works. I love letting artists fully explore their creative space. That's how I roll, and I've gotten some success out of it. Not a whole lot, but I take the wins where I can.
Absolutely.
All right. What can you tell us about the universe? In many series, the world where the story is told is just as much as a character as the protagonist, which is the reader in this series. So why don't you give us a hint of what we can expect from this expansive world you've created?
So the weird thing about this, I think, does go into that, because each time it's its own scenario. I definitely there might be hints and connections between things when it makes sense. But what I try and do is not set it so concretely that people can't put themselves into it. So like if I set it in Australia, that might make an American reader feel that's not them. And the same if I set it in the UK or all those sort of things. So it's really all about creating that same feeling, which is that that there are high stakes, that it feels really deep. And that that there are no guardrails. So that's sort of really about the universe. The actual individual scenarios will change all of the window dressing, for sure. But but the feel should be there.
Right. A term I like to use when to describe everything that you've just talked about is an us world. So there's like there's no delineation between different regions or cultural norms or anything like that. Like anybody can pick it up and just feel like they're part of the story.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
I like it.
I like it too. I can't wait to read this book. I really can't. 2 to 3 days never felt so long.
Who is the blue questions? Because that's next.
Dude. Why do you got to do that? Why you got to embarrass me?
Feel blue now.
Yeah, I should feel blue. JR, if I ever meet you in person, ooh boy.
I will just protect myself with my blue cord of life.
Just curl up in a ball like a bear. Brains is clearly part of his series. I know because it says so on Amazon, which I just ordered the book. Shameless plug, and you're welcome for my money. It's probably, from what you described, I feel it's going to be an amazing read.
Look, in Australian dollars, like one book sale is like $5 billion. I can own entire states now.
Are you kidding me? Oh my god! Yeah,
only a little bit.
The money in Australia is probably worth more than the American dollar right now. Okay, so there's currently one book out in the series. So is their story done? Will there be more from the characters? Where do you see this going? What's next?
Yeah, so there's definitely, I think I mentioned it before, that there's a little bit of a that it will be their own things. I do have ones in development. The one I'm sort of really thinking about right now is technology based, and all I'll say is that there's a pair of movies. Certainly, the first one was all through my childhood, and that was Tron. And that's all I'm saying. I cannot say anymore.
Good movie choices.
I love Tron.
We're glad to see Australia had good picks for you.
Yeah, the kangaroos had to bring them over from the ships and all, but we did get
they're
a few
an island.
movies.
They're not in the Dark Ages, man.
I mean, it was a penal colony, all right? I don't know.
That's why I said European Texas.
All right, save me from myself and ask the next question.
The next question is yours, dude.
No, the next question is green.
I know.
I said what I said, JR.
So, every literary universe has its own rules that are consistent: science, technology, magic. I don't know what's fueling and making your zombies. But what should we expect in the way of tech/magic from your book series?
Greatly varying depending on the core scenario. So when there's say virtual reality, which I don't know if that will be in anything, but if so, that will become a key part of all of the story. The visuals that come along with the tech really matter too, because I think for it to come alive, you really have to create that image to really just smash it into the reader's head, so they don't know it's happening, but they just feel themselves in it. Yeah, and that's probably all that makes sense, I suppose, until I actually sort of can talk about the specifics.
So is there any piece of science or magic in this that you would steal and use or abuse in real life?
From the Brains book.
It would be the core conceit in this type of game book, and that's that you can go back and try again and try something different. I mean, how good would that be in life? I'd be sitting there eating a pack of chips. Oh, that was great. Oh, really? Now my waist isn't going to like that. I'm going to rewind. I've had the experience, but I now don't have to eat those chips.
Nice.
Chips.
I like that. So, we already did that. In your universe, are there any other fantastic creatures in the Brains books other than the zombies?
Well, within this one, I suppose if we say other than zombies, if I can say other than human zombies, yes, absolutely. I have, well, what can I say? There's a zebra zombie, which has one of my scenes that most tickles me.
So, are all animals capable of being zombies in your world then?
There is, through an arc that you'll discover that there are limitations on that.
Okay.
But I won't say what they are. But no, not every single creature could be.
Okay.
But yes,
when I cross-infected, that's awesome.
Yeah. So that, but it is in fact one of the things the character questions early on. I think one of them asks partway through somewhere whether or not could you have a slug zombie?
So if we keep
don't
going,
make me afraid of slugs.
If we keep going, this interview could last hours because we all like zombies and pick your own path stories. Doc really loves the zombies. You should send her all the love via zombie memes, etc. to her email at
I'm going to spam Doc with every zombie photo I come across.
Podcast. But anyway, so
especially if I find a breastfeeding zombie one.
That was a story that was told off air. So if you don't get it, you should just send her that email to ask her at Cisca at Last Year's Blade Podcast. But so if you want to know more, answer all the questions we didn't ask, then you should go buy the book and read it. And don't forget to review it, obviously. But was there anything that we didn't ask about Brains and the larger pick your own path, tangled paths, universe that you wanted to tell us before we move on?
I suppose, really, first of all, it's worth noting that there is an ebook version as well as a print book. It's not available in Kindle Unlimited because of the way that they track, the way they track people reading it. Having links which could jump you through a book backwards and forwards could confuse their systems. And one thing that you never do is anger the almighty Amazon. So it's available through Amazon, but not through Kindle Unlimited. And really just the other thing is that, yes, I wrote it for this sort of 10 plus kid range, but adults absolutely love it. As a family, when we were going through testing it, we went through and we had to go through all of the combinations, but just as a family reading it out, having my wife and older daughter sit there and discuss which option they're going to take and why. It was just a ton of fun. So if you're an adult and you love zombies, or you might feel a little bit of nostalgia, it's also for you.
So in.
All right, so you did just tell us your battery was at like 15%, so we can't gab forever. So as we bring this puppy to a close, can you tell us how listeners and or viewers can find you on the wild, wild, woolly web?
They're coming after me. So it's not by smell. If you go to blacksskybooks.com, you can catch me there. That's my the website that has all some character details and some book details. And if you're in Australia, there you can order an autographed copy. Sorry for international readers, but it just costs so much to ship from Australia. You wouldn't want to get one. And apart from that, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter with the name Max Tillsley, and that's TILLSLEY, because apparently we got all the L's you could ever want. Really, yeah.
So you're an L hoarder. All right, I got it. So, and you can find us on the internet with our website at anchor.fm/blasters, tech, and tech blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters, tech, and tech blades. Our Twitter at SF_fantasy_show, Sierra Foxtrot _fantasy_show. You can email us at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. You can send your hate mail to Cisca @blastersandblades.com. Our Facebook group, and zombies. Our Facebook group is facebook.com/Blasters and Blades Podcast. You can support the show at buymeacoffee /author J.R. Handley, and be sure to put in the comment section that it is for the podcast. And you can also support us over there at anchor.fm. And all of these links will be in the glorious show notes that you should check out. And now, Doc, it's time for you to bring us home.
Thank you for spending your precious time with us. For Nick Garber, the confused J.R. Handley, I'm Cisca, and this was the Blasters and Blade podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, fandom, and seeing if JR can finally tell the difference between sci-fi and fantasy.
and my sobriety.
Ooh, nobody can tell the difference.
All right. That's the